Hello there, friends. This is Mr. Matt here with your Sunday school lesson for today. And today's lesson is one of the classic Bible stories. So many people love this story and inspires them. And it's the story of David and Goliath. Now, you might remember that this month we're talking about the stories of young David before he becomes king and some of the things that happen that we hear from the Bible. And this story is one of the greatest. So we have young David, and he's working as a shepherd. He's watching his father's sheep. But his father says, "The army of Israel is gathered. Your brothers are in the army. I have this bread and these cheeses for you to take to them and to take to support them as they are out in the field. So please take this to where the army is and take this to your brothers." And David does just that. He heads to the battlefield. When he gets to the battlefield, he sees one army, the army of Israel, on one side, and he sees the army of the Philistines lined up on the other side. And he comes up, and they're not fighting. They're just sort of facing off against one another. And he comes and he finds his brothers and he brings them the bread and the cheese that he was asked to bring. And then he asks, what's going on? And his brothers and the other soldiers that are in the army explain that the Philistines have this giant of a man. Now, he's described in the Bible as being both very tall and very strong, because he wears this big armor that's sort of heavier than a normal person could wear, and his weapons are heavy. And this giant of a man, his name is Goliath, comes out and he says, rather than have the armies fight, if you're the army of God, if your God is with you, then you send out one person, and that one person will fight me. And if your side wins, then the Philistine army will go away. But if I win, then you all will become servants of the Philistines. And he says this, and he sort of makes fun of God. He makes fun of the Israelites. He's taunting them and teasing them because he believes that no matter what warrior they send forward, that Goliath, because he's so big and so strong, that he is going to win this fight. Well, David asks around and no one responds to this challenge. They are all afraid of Goliath and going out and fighting Goliath because he's so big and so strong. And David keeps asking and no one's going to go forward. And then finally David says, well, I'll do it. And people sort of laugh and they're like, you're just a boy. You're not a soldier. You don't know how to fight with a sword. And he's like, well, that's all true, but I'm not going to let someone talk badly about God and talk badly about us. God is with us and God is with me. And if I go out there, just like I do when I'm a shepherd, I go out, and if a bear or a wolf or a lion comes and I have to fight to protect the sheep, I do. And God always protects me in that. So I'm just going to trust God, and I'm going to go out and I will fight Goliath because it's the right thing to do to stand up for God. Well, word of this makes its way up to King Saul, and King Saul says, well, you can't go out there by yourself. You need to at least put on some armor and have some weapons. And so they try to give David armor, but remember, he's still a boy, so they put this armor on, and it's so big that he can't move, he can't hardly walk in it. And David says, no, take this off. I have everything that I need. And as he goes, he picks up 5 stones that have the good weight to them, and he puts them in a little pouch, and he walks out onto the field to face Goliath. Now Goliath sees this boy coming out from the army of Israel, and he laughs, and he says, "What are you doing? Are you sending this dog to fight me? Can't you do any better than this?" And David gets out there and he says, "No, I'm going to fight you. What you have said about God is wrong, and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fight on behalf of God. And if God wills it, then I will be victorious." And so Goliath says, "Fine, little boy." And he starts to get his weapons, and they prepare, and everyone's watching this fight. And David pulls out a sling and puts one of the stones into it. And a sling is a weapon that can take a stone and you spin it around, and then when you release it, it has a lot of speed behind it. So David swings the sling and he lets the rock fly, and the scripture tells us that it hits Goliath boop, right in the forehead, and it knocks him out. And Goliath falls to the ground, and David wins. And the army of Israel celebrates. The Philistines, they see their champion. They see Goliath has fallen. And so they then turn and run and flee to head back to their homes. And David beats Goliath. Now, this is a great story, and it's got lots of action to it. And it can be fun to imagine being David fighting Goliath. But there's a lesson in this story for us. There are challenges in our world that we have to face. It might be someone that's a bully at school. It might be some people that don't believe the same thing that you do, and that they make fun of you for what you believe, or they keep asking you why you believe it and trying to persuade you to believe what they believe. When these challenges come up, they can be very scary. They can be situations that you don't know exactly what's going to happen. But in this story, we learn from David that the important thing is to trust God. David didn't go run into the fight, like a crazy person. He thought about it, and he thought about what would God want in this. And he figured out what he needed for the battle. He picked up those rocks. But then when the time came, he stood up. And he stood up in front of Goliath and everything that it meant. And it's true for us that in our life, when we face one of these challenges and we're not sure, we're feeling kind of scared, it's good to stop and think about, what does God want in this situation? And to think about, what is it that I need? What help do I need to gather to prepare for this challenge, to prepare for this obstacle? And it might be, like with a bully, it might be one of the things that you need is that you might need someone else to help you as you confront that bully. But you gather what you need, but there is going to be that moment where you have to stand up and you have to say, this is not right. This is not what God would want. And I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to trust God that as I stand up to do the right thing, that God is going to be with me and support me, and I will be able to conquer this challenge. See, that's the fun thing about these stories about David. They're interesting stories from the Bible, but they also have such great insights for us. So as you think about the story of David and Goliath and you're having fun with it, also remember to think about what lessons it's teaching you. Is there a challenge that you're facing? How would talking to God about it, and how would thinking about how you best approach this challenge and getting what you need to face that challenge, how can you do that for what you have to face? And ultimately, have faith that when you have done those things and you're trying to do the things that God would want you to do, have faith that God is going to be there with you as you do it. All right. That's all we have time for now. I hope you enjoy the activity video. It's going to involve a little bit of taking some pictures and having some fun with photography. So I hope you enjoy that. And until next time, take care. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.